Am I the only one that goes out in public, especially when it's like a busy place to like a concert or a mall or something like that? Am I the only one that thinks to myself, I wonder how many of these people are on Pornhub? Good day, Sir Blasphemy here for Sir Blasphemy's Travels. I hope you guys are doing well out there, and I hope you're having the day you deserve. I'm back again for another video, back in the man cave, so to speak, and decided to do a video today about some of the giving you basically 5 reasons why it's extremely hard to be a vendor. Some of the toughest parts about being a vendor. And and this is just a few of many. I'm sure other vendors, if they looked at this, could pick out a different set of 5. It's always possible, because there's just so many things that you have to understand about being a vendor at a Renaissance fair and what it, all it entails. And so I thought I would just give you kind of a short video here today and just kind of tell you, to keep it in mind, along with all the other things that I've told you in my Renaissance fair videos. These are some other things to keep in mind, and I may have even touched on this a time or two in the past in some other videos, but I thought I would do one video to where, I could maybe just throw some of the toughest things for me about being a Renaissance fair video, and I'm sure other vendors could relate. And it's something that if you're going to want to be a Renaissance fair vendor, it's something to kind of, keep in the back of your mind, keep an eye on it and be prepared for these things as you do so. So again, there's many other reasons than this. This is just some of the ones that bother me the most, that are harder on me, the most, as a Renaissance fair vendor. And these are in no particular order. So I'll just start out with number 5. The first thing that you need to remember if you're going to be a new vendor and you're going to go into Renaissance fairs, and even if you're maybe a seasoned veteran who's looking to expand and go on, you're not going to get into every fair. There are very few of Renaissance fair vendors that are in every fair, and it's because, or any fair that they want to get into, it's because they're big, they have a lot of resources, and they have a system down. They've been doing it for a long time, and you'll see a lot of those vendors at Renaissance fairs. But for those of us that are at most Renaissance fairs, if I can speak right today, but for those of us that are maybe just starting now and in this day and age, it's a little bit harder to get into every fair. I haven't been accepted into every fair. I haven't been accepted into my home fair, which is the Arizona Renaissance Festival. I would like to be, but I haven't been, accepted. And so the reliability of doing that can be shaky. Just to keep that in mind, you might start out and go, oh great, I've gotten into this fair, and cool, that's for 2 months. And then all of a sudden you're applying, and then all of a sudden you might get a fair, that occurs 4 or 5 months later, which means that you got to fill the gaps. If, for like most of us, if you don't, make a ton of money yet, you have to fill those gaps, those monthly breaks. So that means you're working part-time, or you're working full-time for somebody, or you have to job jump, because most jobs, they don't want to hire you if they know you're just going to work for them a couple of months and then you're going to go back and work for yourself and then you're going to come back. They just don't do that. And so it's something to think about. I would, if I was going to go into doing a Renaissance fair today instead of the way that I did it before, I would attack as many as possible and then see if I get accepted into a few, and then if I can work out my calendar year and then build on that for a couple of years. That way you know where your gaps are at, you know what to expect at these fairs, you know your timetable, what your income's going to be, and then you can then start to double up on fairs and start to stack them, on top of each other. As you get better at it, you make more money, it becomes more reliable to you, and you can, just go from there. But it can be, you can get a fair in, let's say there's a fair that starts in March of the year, and it goes through March and April, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh yeah, well I'll be able to get that fair that runs April and May, or I'll get the fair that runs in June through August, whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden you submit, you've committed to the one fair that you were accepted into, you submit to these other fairs, and they're like, no, not this year, we don't have room for you. And you're like, great, is this going to be worth my avenue to do? Because now I have only one fair for one part of the year, or maybe I have 2 fairs and they're spread out. So if you're going to do it, you kind of need to commit right into it. Unless you're just like, oh, I live near this fair, it's okay, I work this job, I can do this fair without it really disrupting my life in any way. But if you're traveling to another state, you know you're going to be gone for a couple of months. Most jobs are not going to keep you. They're not. So just keep that in mind. If I was going to do something, I would attack these fairs all at once and just try to stack them up the best you can. Get commitments or get contracts for these fairs if you can, and then go from there and see what your time frame is going to be. So I would say that's kind of the hardest part in the top 5, not the hardest part, but one of my top 5ers is that it can be shaky. You have gaps. This isn't a reliable income source until you get it to be a reliable income source. So there you go. So let's go on to number 4. Number 4 will be the living conditions are minimal. And at times they can even be expensive depending on what you do. So be prepared. You're not getting the amenities of home, whether that be you have an RV and you're parking it in an RV park, or maybe you're parking it on the fairgrounds, or maybe you're just straight up camping on site. You have to be prepared for this. Or maybe you found a cheap hotel that's affordable, that doesn't cut into your base too much. Whatever the case may be, you're going to have to learn to kind of downsize on the road, and you're going to have to learn that you're not going to have the amenities that you're used to having once you start this path. Once you get the rhythm for it, you're in pretty good shape. You'll get used to it. You'll adjust to these things, but your conditions are minimal, and you have to learn to work with less. Especially if you've got like animals and stuff with you, then you really have to kind of figure out, how can I, if something happens to my animal, what vet can I go to that's near this fair or in the area? There's a lot of things you got to think about when you do that. It's just like I've told people before in other videos. Prep like you're just going on a long camping trip. Bring those essentials, because that's the best way I can tell you to get ready for it. Even if you get a hotel room, or even if you're in an RV, minimal dishes, you're going to have to, cook minimally. You're going to have to, there's a lot of things. The modern comforts of home are just not there. And so that's kind of one of the hardest parts to also keep in mind about being a Renaissance Fair vendor. It's like camping full-time, essentially, is what you're doing, basically. So you have to be mentally prepared for that, and you have to be physically prepared for that too as well. So just make sure that you're prepared for that lifestyle if you get into vending at Renaissance fairs on a full-time basis, for sure. Number 3, I'll say your ability to make product can be very difficult depending on what, and this falls into even number 4, depending on what your living situation is. So that's why it's always best, in certain circumstances, to make your product as much as you can up front. If you don't have a large booth that you own with plenty of space and a kitchen and things like that, because there's plenty of booth owners out there that have that. But you have to make sure that you have plenty of product for each run, especially if you're going to go from one fair to the other immediately, back to back. You have to make sure that you have plenty of product, and you need to make that in some place that you have space and you can be comfortable and you have the amenities you need to take care of that product. Because the last thing you want to do is make a bunch of product but not make enough to survive a full run of one fair, much less than 2. And then all of a sudden you start to run low, and then you're paying for a kitchen somewhere, or you're paying for a space somewhere so you can make stuff, and you're shipping stuff into this space or wherever you're at. You don't want to have to do that. That's why a lot of the people that make a lot more money than I do at fairs, or go into it at least with a lot more money, their booths and stuff are rather large. They have areas where they can make stuff, they can do their product, which is brilliant. But most of us don't have that big of a pocketbook to build something like that. Most of us are working within means, something small, something reasonable. And like me, I have to make sure I have all my product up front. If I overmake too much, that's just fine. That's great. Then I've done what I needed to do. But you have to be ready you have to be ready when you get to Faire. You have to be ready. Your product's got to be ready, especially if you're a first-time vendor or just kind of maybe a veteran of it a little bit, but you're getting into the swing of doing more and more fairs. You have to make sure you have your product. Get your product made. It can, like for me, it takes a couple of months for me to prep for one large fair like TRF. So you've got to make sure that you set your time aside to get your product done, have plenty of it, and be ready for every single weekend at Faire. And the last thing you want to do is go there at Faire and then not have enough product, of course, look thin. Management wouldn't like that too at fairs, but you just don't want to run out 2 or 3 weekends into it and then have to jump through all these hurdles to make more product. So make sure you have your arrangements for your product to be made, whether it's here or on the road. Just have that set up. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's another one of the hardest parts about being a Renaissance fair vendor. Let me take a look at my list here. I have to lean forward. Number 2, it's pretty self-evident. You're away from home all the time. You're away from the comforts of home. Unless you're somebody that lives in their RV or just does this and your home is the road, then you're at home all the time, which is great. But for most of us, it's not like that. And so you're away from home. And it can be hard because you're not seeing family. Maybe you're not seeing friends or whatever the case may be. Or you're not seeing your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whatever the case may be, unless they're going with you. But you're just away from home, and so the things that you're used to doing, your habits change. You form new habits. You do different things to get by day to day, and there can be a lot of downtime for some people during the week between fairs, which is great. But you can, you don't have your home to just go run back to be, comfortable in, or to go sit outside and relax. So it's something to think about. You're away from home a lot because you're on the road a lot. And so I'll say, if you're a full-time vendor, you're probably on the road 8 to 10 months a year. So maybe you've got a total of 2 months that you're at home. So it's something to think about. That's something that sounds okay when you first get going, but once you get involved, you're like, man, there's days where you're like, man, I really wish I was back at home. It's been 2 or 3 months since I've been there. So something to think about. So that's number 2 of my reasons. So number 1, and before I get to number 1 here, I just want to remind you guys to please like and subscribe and tickle that bell for all future notifications, and comment on my video whenever you can. If you've got more feedback, if other vendors want to add to this list, please do so. I would love for you to do that. I always comment back 100% of the time if I can. And yeah, so just if you like videos like this, please continue to support me. I appreciate you. I'm on my road to 1,000. So, all right, let's get to number 1. Number 1 for sure. I know that this is the hardest one on me for the most part. It can be lonely. That's it. It can be lonely. It can be very lonely, guys. If you're doing this by yourself, like I don't have a significant other, I don't have family that'll go with me, or, friends that will go with me. Most of them work, they have their own lives and things like that. Once I get on the road, the hardest part after a while is just the fact that you don't have anybody to talk to. You go from this, hyper social situation when you're at the fairs over the weekend to just dead silence. And it can be hard. You find ways, you find outlets, whether it's like playing a guitar or writing or doing a vlog or doing videos like this. You find outlets to kind of keep yourself entertained. And it can be, when you go 4 or 5 days and you've talked to no one, it can be lonely. It can be lonely. And I think that's the hardest part about doing this, is you get lonely. You wish you had a friend, or you wish you had a girlfriend. In my case, you wish you had a girlfriend. And so you are someone, or even a business partner to do it with. And if you have none of those things and you're doing this on your own, you'll see what I mean. You'll experience that. You'll go, man, I wish I had somebody to share this with, or somebody. Even when you're working at the fair itself, when it's the hyper social time, you're sometimes you got to pee, so things like that. So you wish you had somebody around. But yeah, I think that's it. I think for me, most of the time, I've camped and I've stayed in hotels, and that's mainly what I've had to do to get this thing going. And I can tell you, sitting in a hotel all week long, you're just in a, you guys know what a hotel room looks like. It's just a room with a bed and a bathroom. There's not much roaming. So I find myself all the time outside, or I find myself, just driving around the area I'm in just to have something to do. and you know, not having anybody to talk to is difficult. So yeah, I'm taking applications out there, ladies. No, but anyway, you know, I'm joking, but I'm not joking, but I'm joking here for that sake. But yeah, I mean, it can be difficult. So that's probably the hardest part. And I think most vendors that do this by themselves will probably tell you the same thing. It sucks not to have somebody to talk to, or to share the adventures with, or to even bounce ideas off of, or just to have the company around. So yeah, I mean, that's 5 things that I've just listed that I would deem as the hardest part about being a Renaissance Fair vendor. So there you go. So I hope you guys find these videos informative. And like I said before, please like and subscribe, tickle the bell, comment. I appreciate you. I'm on the road to 1,000, trying to get monetized, and the channel's growing. It's getting better and better, and you guys are the reason for that. Thank you guys for interacting with me, those that have all in the past and here recently, all through this channel, all through social media. I thank you guys so much, and I hope you guys find these videos useful, and you know, and they'll help give you a leg up if this is the work avenue or the lifestyle you're looking to get into. So anyway, guys, that's it. So short and simple. I appreciate you guys very much, and until next time, Sir Blasphemy out.